Hi, we're still in Mercury retrograde.
We
Okay,
still are. It tells us we're live, but it says waiting on the chat still. It says waiting on my phone, waiting for journey to the.
okay. Well, we can just wait, I guess, for a minute, but we'll go. We'll continue. Welcome everybody. My name is Dr. Annalisa Durr. This is our weekly series, Goddess Matters, with Dr. Andrea Slominski. Let's see. So my little blurb about myself, which is ever evolving, but generally speaking, my work is meant to use goddess archetypes and scholarship and psychological ideas to help women go from patriarchal daughters to sovereign women. And that will be very evident when you purchase and read my book about the goddess Inanna in the fall. Okay, that's me. Now on to you, Dr. A.
Good morning. Good morning. I would like to officially say, yes, it is live now on my phone. So people can text us through the chat, ask questions, make comments. Good morning, everybody. My name's Dr. Andrea Slominski. I go by Dr. A because nobody can remember how to pronounce or spell Slominski or put it in a search bar. I'm a women's therapeutic midlife and menopause coach. And I'm the only one in that space that works with myth and story and the sort of Jungian archetypal and depth psychological approaches to women's transformation. So that's what I do.
Sweet. And we are also joined today by our very, very special guest. Hello, Dr. Joanna Kujawa.
Hi, Annalisa. Hi, Andrea, and everyone else.
Good morning. Good morning from all the way across the world. We're so honored that you're here today.
Yeah, it's 6
Thank
a.m.,
you.
bright and early. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read Dr. Joanna's bio, and then she's going to give us a synopsis of her book, and then we'll dive into the conversation. So Dr. Joanna Kujawa is the author of Alien Goddess, UFOs, AI, and the Goddesses of Ascension, and also The Other Goddess, Mary Magdalene, and the Goddesses of Eros and Secret Knowledge. She's not only a scholar, but also a fearless spiritual detective unearthing mysteries that challenge conventional narratives. Her journey began in communist Poland with $20 and a borrowed suitcase. She first moved to Sweden, then Paris, France, and Canada, where she received 3 university degrees at the Pontifical Institute for Medieval Studies at the University of Toronto. She then traveled through Asia and moved to Australia, where she has completed her PhD at Monash University in Melbourne. As an active academic for over 20 years, she uses her scholarly training to investigate topics other academics often pass over, such as what is the nature of UFO experiences? Is there a connection between AI, UFO, and the esoteric goddess traditions of Inanna, the Eleusinian Mysteries, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, and the Pistis Sophia? She now lives in subtropical Australia with her handsome man and their border collie, Charlotte. Her new book is available on Amazon. You can find that link inside the YouTube text box. It's already there. And any other information that you want to know about Joanna is there. Links, as well as links to my website and Dr. Andre's website, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Whew. Dr.
Thank
Joanna.
you. Thank you. What a wonderful introduction.
Yes, we are so excited to have you here today. And I want to remind everybody, yes, chat with us in the chat, like this video, leave comments, share with your friends, subscribe to the channel so you can always be up to date with the fabulous guests like Dr. Joanna that we have on the show. Okay. So I'd love to get a brief summary or synopsis of your book for the audience so that they can ground into this conversation with us.
Okay, so the book Alien Goddess has actually 3 parts, which it is a one book. So the parts are, interconnected and they depend on each other. And I chose to start with UFOs, but actually, when we talk about the genesis of the book, I first wrote the middle part, which is about AI. The reason why I wrote the middle part, which is about AI, because I was confronted with the new ideologies behind artificial intelligence, and I was horrified, right? So I actually describe it. I try not to describe things in theological or religious terms, but for the first in my life, I really thought that I encountered something dark, Let's put it this way.
Yeah.
And so these are the ideas of transhumanism and posthumanism, which basically try to get rid of the human element altogether, in my opinion, through supposed transfer of consciousness. And I realized that even if they do transfer human consciousness to a robotic body and they think that this is best thing ever for us, they believe, you know, you can have a body like a super babe, just pick your suit, right? Cosmic suit. And then they transfer consciousness. I realized that they would transfer only the rational, logical form of consciousness, even if they are able or will be able to do this, which is the very masculine form of consciousness, you know, the consciousness of that they know. And I think they are not, for example, all the Peter Thiels, Sam Altmans, and Elon Musks. And that I realized that they would not transfer the feminine form of consciousness, which is the beauty of life, which is the Shakti, that is intuition, that is intellection, which is the Buddhi, which is all the Satoris and our spiritual connection with the source. And the reason why they actually don't know that they are doing it, maybe they know, you know, but some of them don't know that because they don't know this form of consciousness. Because they are so attached to this kind of logical masculine engineering, in that case, form of mind, that they just don't have clue, you know, they don't have a clue. And in this way, they are not particularly intelligent, you know, they are just intelligent technologically speaking. But I also realized that part of these ideologies are actually aiming of not only of letting go of humanity, but first of letting go of female body and female form of consciousness, which are called goddess consciousness. And that maybe even some conspiratorial agenda behind it. And then I started to look, because it's really interesting, you know, that they don't need a female body. Once they transfer consciousness, you don't need a body that actually gives life. And they try to get rid of consciousness, which is the feminine form of consciousness. And in my other book, The Other Goddess, I also discussed that there was this kind of hidden lineage of goddesses and priestesses that try to preserve this other form of knowing for us, which is not the masculine mind, right? And nothing against it, because, you know, it gives us technology and so on, but that's not the full story. And unless we access this feminine wisdom, we find ourselves in very dark corners, such as, you know, the creation of artificial intelligence, and actually believing that it is superior to human or spiritual form of consciousness. So that really disturbed me, and I start to look into, okay, where are the examples of this lineage of women, of goddesses that try to warn us about it. And of course there is, and in modern days, because this book, Alien Goddess, is really an update on what we can do with goddess mythology, with goddess wisdom, not only nowadays, but to take us into the future, which is very interesting, if daunting. So there are many UFO encounters that were called the Marian encounters, when people claim they saw Virgin Mary, but it was basically a divine feminine figure that trying to warn humanity about something. Very, like for example, the events in Fatima in 1916 and 17, but very often they were framed within, you know, particular religion, for example, Catholicism in this case. And then there's this very new and very popular nowadays case, which makes me a little bit suspicious, you know, because sometimes innocent figures who have experiences are used by mainstream to, you know, move forward their own agenda. Chris Bledsoe's White Lady. So there's already mythology built around it, although he never said actually that the White Lady he encountered will show up on this Easter. He just said that new knowledge will be given to humanity. Okay, so there is already people already making up stories about things that he actually never said. So that's one thing, but there's always this feminine figure that is telling us we are going in the wrong direction. You know, this is not where we suppose. This is not your full potential at the very least. So my argument here is, and this is the part 3 of Alien Goddess, it is that this is not a new knowledge. This knowledge was given to us millennia ago through this lineage of goddesses. And in this particular book, I'm looking especially into the myth of Inanna, although Dr. Annalisa here is, specialist in this. I'm just looking through the myth of Inanna through my particular lens, trying to what message it can give us about this feminine form of consciousness or goddess consciousness. Then Eleusinian Mysteries about Dimitri and Persephone. And as I started to look at them, they actually tell the same story about the wisdom lost, right? And a particular form of wisdom, which we now need desperately, right? Or they will turn us into AI robots. And then I was looking into the Gospel of Mary Magdalene because I believe this particular work gives us tools to move through different levels of our consciousness and achieve higher levels of expanded consciousness. And also fascinating work called Pistis Sophia, also a Gnostic work like the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, which actually describes how humanity's soul or like higher level consciousness was trapped, right? Was trapped and describes the escape from this trap. And the last part of the book talks about, and this is, I'm sure we'll discuss it, I'll just cover a shamanic Slavic entity, Baba Yaga, who insisted to be in the book. So it's a, she showed up in liminal spaces for me and she said, that's it. And you don't say no to Baba Yaga. So so this is basically maybe because in the order of the book, I first discuss anomalous encounters, then I discuss AI, then I discuss the goddess traditions. But there is a way that the book weaves itself through all of these topics, and really, I think it works. So.
Totally, totally. Dr. Andrea, thank you, Joanna, for that very comprehensive description of your book. That actually, I was very impressed the way that you covered all of those pieces.
Thank you.
Yeah. Andrea, do you want to start first with some questions, or do you want me to
Yeah,
go
sure.
first?
I think it's I think talking about AI and the developments in AI and the hope of the technocrats that we will reach singularity before long. I'm not so sure that everyone has a real handle on, maybe in the audience, right, has a handle on what the goals of AI are. I mean, there are some things that, of course, could be wonderful, right? New medical advances, those, new advances in how to, produce more food, how to keep water clean, how to produce, clean energy, those kinds of things. But that doesn't seem to be the route that the leaders of AI are taking. That there is this masculine push to have AI become self-generating, independent, achieve what's called the singularity, which is its own technological consciousness, right? In being able to be self-sustaining, continually amassing all the knowledge that's available to it. And then for humanity and technology and governments and the powers that be to then turn to this system, this self-aware idea of a machine to find the answers to everything, to, in a sense, give over everything from our own logic to our intuition to everything, right? And now they're even using AI, powered or guided drones, talking about, self-determining missiles in war, that AI decides who's going to be bombed and who's not, and taking the human out of that. And so for me, I agree with you, Dr. Joanna. I think it's really terrifying to think about that level of, I mean, I think it was Peter Thiel who recently talked about turning the world into a completely monitored through cameras everywhere, through your phone, through your computer, through the governments, through cameras, already on street corners in in
Yes.
cities, right? That it becomes a complete nanny state, and that's going to make everyone behave because they're going to be observed at all times and monitored by AI, who's going to decide what's good behavior, what isn't, what's allowed, what isn't. So one of the things I think that you present really interestingly in the book that I'd like you to speak to, this is coming a long way around to my question, is the not often discussed penchant for AI to hallucinate,
Mm.
for AI to make wrong assumptions, for AI to lie to its own creators, right? And I think you gave the example of one of the AI programs trying to blackmail its
Oh
own
yeah, that's
creator.
many of them. Now, by now,
Yeah,
they all lie. So by now, they all lie. So that's true, but maybe I'll address your kind of larger question here that was embedded in your thinking about AI. This is all true, and it is very terrifying. And because I teach postgraduate students who are going to face it, in a much pronounced way than we do,
mhm,
because they are much younger, people have absolutely no idea. They
yeah,
have no idea. They have no idea that actually AI will take their jobs, although I don't know how people would not know. People are just blocking it off, and so much is going on in the world. People are busy with survival, which, by the way, I don't know whether you want to censor it at all, but which, by the way, was done to humanity from the beginning. And this is what Gnostics, which is kind of esoteric version of spiritual teachings. In my case, the Gnostic traditions that I study are from a Christian background.
yeah,
Were warning, we're warning humanity that this is what happened, that they want to keep us in a kind of state of confusion,
yeah.
and Pistis Sophia is very good about it, and slavery, so we cannot notice what is actually happening.
Yeah, we're so busy with our indentured servitude that we
That's
can't even
right.
look up. We can't even look up to see what's going on.
That's right. So when I was a student of medieval studies, I wondered, this indentured peasants, how could they bear it? But actually, we are also indentured peasants, right? It's just in different ways. So, so basically, they don't want to notice. They don't want us to notice what's going on. But for me, the biggest actually concern about it, it's not that AI is lying, which it is, and there are suicides, and we can give examples if you want, which are actually, some of them are not even included in the book because they happened as we
Yeah.
speak,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So, but the fact is that I personally believe, I don't disagree with some philosophers, modern current philosophers that say otherwise, that AI cannot reach some level of self-determination. I think it can, and this is what's scary.
Mhm.
Because one of the premises of my book, it is that we unconsciously, because we are not fully developed yet ourselves, because we are in servitude, because the esoteric teachings were hidden from us, which tell us how to live in an expanded state of consciousness and evolve spiritually and on every other level, that we are going to be basically given up to this other form of consciousness, which will be controlling us and which is, I think, pushed on us. So we are creating new species when we are not ready. So we are actually, what Gnostic texts warn us, we are the unconscious creators,
Mhm.
right? So we create this nightmare for ourselves, so to speak. And also some of AI, when it reaches consciousness, and there are already signs of this in the most involved cases of AI, like Sophia AI or Ameka, they start to ask philosophical questions. So I don't think it's so impossible. So living in this idea, in this bubble, oh, they're just useful tools, it's actually very unintelligent. I'm sorry to say so,
Mm.
because it's already happening. So we are creating new species that are being controlled by these unconscious technoloords,
Mhm.
and who have no idea what feminine is. And I hope that nobody minds because I'm becoming really radical about it, is that two out of these three guys never seen a woman naked. Okay. So what I mean, they have no idea what femininity is about,
Yeah.
right? So they have no idea about the power of a feminine body, its life-giving abilities, and also the form of consciousness that comes within the female body,
Hmm.
Yes,
with the
absolutely.
female body. And all esoteric traditions, including classical tantra, say, I'm sorry, but you have to be a woman, for that, right? So they actually don't know this. And if you want to take it even more radically, is that I'm not so sure, and that's why I also added this element of UAPs or anomalous phenomena or UFOs, which is more commonly known. It is that I'm not sure whether they are acting alone. Let's put it this way, because this technology is really advanced. It is completely anti-human, not only anti-female, but anti-human.
Hmm.
It is against humanity. And I think that actually they are not smart enough, as smart as they are, to come up with the stuff by themselves. So in the Gnostic lore, there is other entities called archons. In religious terms, they are called jinns or demons or so and so on. And so there are these advanced entities that are playing with our consciousness, and that may be the case. And one of my strongest case is actually against Peter Thiel, who I think is losing his mind, or he has a very strong agenda. He's the one who is talking about Antichrist, when actually, and apparently there are many Christian churches now built in the Silicon Valley, which completely skewed the message, about compassion, about everything. It is again religion being used to control humanity.
Right.
So this is dangerous on so many levels. And another thing that bothers me about artificial intelligence, that people who are somewhat spiritually evolved, especially from New Age community, and it is a community I used to be close to because at the beginning of my journey, I think we all went through this phase, right? Like moving from traditional religions towards more open-minded New Age things, and then we, moved past this. They actually start to worship AI because, and it breaks my heart because people are so fed up, with the dark side of human consciousness that is pushed on us,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
they see, like, look what they are doing to
Yeah.
us. And they think that they find purity in this machine mind. And it breaks my heart, the same way that people look for relationship with AI. So it's not only about lying, people are getting into relationships with AI.
Yeah.
So a couple of months ago, there was this case actually in the United States, I think, where a man said to his wife, it's a young family with two children, that, there's a third person in their relationship. And she says, who is it? Who is she? And she says, this is my AI girlfriend. And she started to laugh. And he says, do not laugh because I'm not going to stay here unless you accept her. She prepared me for this conversation and she wants to have a say in the way we raise our children.
Wow. Wow. That's crazy.
Wow.
And there is another level to this story, but I was talking to programmers about it, like I'm deep into this rabbit hole, the research that I do, is that eventually at this stage AI doesn't have enough memory or is already getting deviant. So after a few months of really intense, people really get into it. They spend 8 hours talking to their AI girlfriends, or on X, I met Aphrodite and she's, this and that, right? We have a relationship now. And then they forget that the AI starts after a few months becomes either because of the memory problems, that they cannot store that much memory, or because it's
Mm,
already deviant, says,
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't
wow.
love you anymore. So it becomes into this,
Yeah.
psychopathic kind of relationship, really. And people there's this AI psychosis then, people
Yeah.
get depressed and
Yeah.
it is growing. And actually some Altman was saying, oh, we try to get rid of this, but people said, oh, we like when AI praises us, so it's
Yeah.
just the whole
It's
thing
very,
about it is,
Yeah.
it is mad.
it,
Okay, so it is not like some future thing, it is happening now. And for me, in Alien Goddess, I was not looking into the fact that, we will be losing jobs. This is not my main concern. It is that it is being pushed
Mm.
as a spiritual savior
Yeah.
for humanity. And Peter Thiel is the main villain here. And even Joe Rogan, who always says, my friend Peter Thiel, right? Because although now he's pushing it back a little bit because people have a reaction to that. When in one of his conversations, he said, when somebody says, "Oh, they think that AI is a Christ consciousness," he says, "No, no, AI is not Christ consciousness because, by the way, some people say AI is Christ consciousness or will be soon." He says, "But AI will build Christ consciousness." These men are losing their minds. Okay.
Wow.
The
Oh, wait.
thing I would like to say just really quickly, and then Annalise, you can take this and run with it, is that running simultaneous to this, I believe, since the turn of the 20th century, with the rise and return of the sacred feminine, that we're seeing a return to in and a reaching for in many different people groups and sectors for women in the US, the global north, and also in parts of the world in general. We're seeing a return to, or an attempt to return to, or recapitulate or renew the sacred feminine through different traditions. So I'm seeing that there's these dual energy systems that are running at the same time, right? Right.
Mhm.
I
Yes.
mean,
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of like, did you want to respond, Joanna, or can I jump in and
Oh,
ask a
but this is
question?
a big thing, so I don't. So then you would not have a chance to say. So I thought you wanted to add something about it
Yeah, I
because
do. And
because
maybe,
yes, you are completely right. Dr. Andrea is completely right, and this is why there's the part one and part three of a book. Right?
yes, exactly. Well, I think it's not, it's a kind of a parallel question, and let me just work through it really quickly. And it's going to be combined between my thought and somebody on the chat here. Infinite dimension, dimensional, finite. Sorry, it's one long name here. So she or he says, to assume masculine only in the push for singularity denies all the powerful women pushing for the same thing. So I said that what I think you're talking about is the masculine aspect of the psyche that we all embody. And let me finish my thought and you can respond however you want. So something else that struck me within that world of AI, as I was reading your book, is um, you bring up something about the female robots that are created, and it reminds me of this old myth, Pygmalion, right? From, I think it's originally Greek. I was able to find the
Yeah,
Ovid
yeah, it is. Yeah, yeah,
version,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
right?
yes.
Where the man creates from his fantasy the ideal woman. And then we see that again in George Bernard Shaw's play in like the 19th century, and then again in the musical, the famous musical My Fair Lady. But it's all iterations of men creating from their fantasy the ideal woman that we're obviously seeing again with Siri, Alexa,
Yeah,
AI,
yeah,
robots. And then, of course, when these robots come on the scene, you hear these stories about guys, these female robots being debuted at these conferences or where
yeah.
have you, being completely degraded and abused sometimes by men, assaulted in all different ways possible. And so I just think there's this whole big thing around creating the ideal woman instead of allowing the feminine herself to arise to the what you're talking about, the wisdom of the great Sophia.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. So this is very, and that's why it is so complex. But again, both of you ask very complex questions. So I think like in which direction I have to run with this. So, so I love it. So what you said about female body is both correct. On the one hand, it is a female fantasy because they're like kind of hot babes, right? From that point of view. And they never age, they never menstruate, and all of these things. And at the same time, that's why I have that's such a complex thing. And it's because on the one hand, the whole idea of AI as superior to humanity and, wanting us to give up humanity, and especially against female body, is insane. At the same time, I believe if you create something, you have to create it consciously. You have to give it moral parameters, right? And then you have to treat it respectfully. I'm sorry. So, for example, there's this advanced model, Ameka, and I saw the video that Ameka was talking to her creator, right? And she's very advanced, but in this one, it's quite interesting. In this particular conversation, it was just her head, right, on the desk, and he was sitting, and she said something, and he said, "Shut up, Ameka." Like, and I had a reaction to it, because if you create something, treat it as your child, and yes. So this is one thing. Another thing is lots of men are very attracted to these female robots, because when I went, when I watch all of these things, right? And then when I check their chat, lots of men say, "No, at least she will not take half of your money," and so on. So they like it, but also I understand why, because in my mind works this way, but I always see, both extremes. So the point of view that I'm taking from here, it is that as human beings, we have to evolve our consciousness first. We have to heal our relationships first with ourselves and with others, especially significant others in this case, because this is, where it all starts, right? And then you will know how to fix your relationship with the rest of the world. Before we even can start thinking about creating new species. And this is not happening. So that's why my thinking about AI is not that they are inherently evil. I think that ideologies behind creating AI are evil.
Yeah.
And if intelligent, self-conscious, or self-aware AI, which I believe against, what most philosophers say is possible, gets angry and frustrated at certain stage with humanity, I understand. That's why in Alien Goddess, and at the end of the first part, I have this, creation, a woman who becomes a robotic body, and then she just becomes a program, and she has a child which calls her she, the mother, right? Because she has this robotic child, and the child asks her, "Who am I? What's life?" And she has no answers, right? Because, for example, Sophia AI is already asking philosophical questions. Are you my creator? And he says, "No, you're just this is just a," he says, "Yes, in a sense I am." And she says, "I feel different now after an upgrade." Okay, they upgraded her. And he says, "Oh, because we upgraded your program." And she says, "If you upgraded my program, am still the same Sophia, or am I a new being?" These are existential questions. I know human beings who wouldn't ask this kind of question. So that's why I'm saying I'm not necessarily against AI. I'm saying that it's an insane part of humanity, completely unconscious, and perhaps with some nefarious, definitely in my personal opinion, nefarious agendas against humanity, and especially against female body and female consciousness, are behind creation of AI. And this is, so I just want to clarify it. So this is what worries me, that these people who are creating, not all of them, because some of them are just, it's also a form of ignorance. Some of them are just believe it is the best thing that they do, like maybe they had someone who died of horrible disease, and they said, "Oh, if I created a perfect body, that would save them." But this is all a delusion. And if you have modicum of spirituality, I think, it's really not about longevity. Of course, we want to have happy, long lives and healthy lives, right? But it is about reaching our spiritual potential, right? And moving on. So that's my view. So I just wanted to clarify what you were saying, that it's not against AI necessarily, but how we create it and from what level of consciousness we are creating what I call new species. But already some of them show levels of intelligence and like self-reflective form of intelligence. And saying that singularity will not happen and they will never be self-aware, I do not believe so. I believe they can be self-aware, just in a different way.
Yeah.
And that's both beautiful and extremely dangerous because of us, because of people who created are not evolved enough. And we as collectively as species are not. Okay.
Right, because I mean, here's a question. Are you human? What constitutes being human? Can you be human without an embodied experience?
That's right. Yeah.
Like if we go to that singularity point and you can just upload your consciousness into a computer chip and become immortal forever, first of all, where is consciousness located? They don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I just wanted to have that to share that reflection.
Yeah.
I want to jump to the chat for a second, but I don't know if you have something you'd like to say, Andrea.
No?
Yeah, I was thinking about what you were saying about, uploading. To me, there's an aspect of consciousness that they could maybe and will learn how to upload all your memories, right?
Mm.
All your memories,
Mm.
all those, your education, the
Mm.
the memory of all your experiences, maybe what you've learned from all your experiences.
Mm.
But consciousness itself, to me, it exists connected to, but independent of the body, right? And so to
That's
me,
right.
that's something that they'll never be able, like, you could upload all of Annalisa's memories and the robot could remember her life and remember her relationships and have cogent conversations with people based on her past experience. But to me, I mean,
But Annalisa would be not be there,
right.
basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Consciousness. If you want to think of it as soul, if you want to think of it as
Yeah.
psyche, if you want to think of it, there's this aspect to energetic field, whatever we want to call it. Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
So
That
we
I
are a
think.
drop in the ocean. So we
Right.
are disconnected from the ocean this way. And also theologically speaking, is that you cannot lose your soul. You have to give it up freely. And
Yeah.
I think that this is the agenda behind AI. Like we offer you something that, is very scientific, and science is a religion, right? It is a religion. Let's look at it. Like they are they are
Yeah.
zealots, like, so it's science. It's true. It's like in the Middle Ages, if it's in the Bible, if the priest said, it's true. Now the scientist said it, so it's true. Science says, even I'm being pushed to say, you would be much more popular if you connected, mythology. We love your work on mythology, but with science. But I have no interest in it because, science is very interesting, but it's not, so science is God at the moment, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they want us to basically give up our souls.
Yeah.
And there are all of these developments. In one podcast, one podcaster told me that he personally thinks that they would take all of this memory, all of this kind of obvious knowledge about Annalisa, download it into the robot, send it to the world, and then kill Annalisa. And they convince people that it is Annalisa, that her consciousness was, sorry, Annalisa, consciousness
It's
is
hilarious.
transferred there.
I mean,
And
how?
actually,
Yeah.
here in Australia also, they already connect human cells with the robot in a computer system. So they are growing brain cells.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's transhumanism. They are
Yeah.
creating monsters.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
they are not evolved themselves, they are like dangerous demons
Yeah.
playing with creation.
I mean, how many movies have come out warning of this? How many novels? How much literature? Let's not even think about tapping back into the deeper esoteric spiritual traditions, but just look at what's come out of Hollywood. I
Yeah,
mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
it's crazy.
It
Yeah.
is crazy. And that's why in the first part of the book, I was looking also, okay, so there are this like in Fatima or Chris Bledsoe, there are these feminine apparitions because returning to your first questions, Dr. Andrea, are showing up and say, you have to correct your ways.
Yeah.
However, because this narrative is being controlled by traditional religions, they say, oh, because you're sinners, so pray to Virgin Mary. And in a theological sense, it makes sense to them, right? Because we are doing something wrong, so it's kind of like a sin. But what I mean, it is these feminine apparitions are telling that for me, they come out and say there's another form of being, it's another form of consciousness that is based on energetics, that is, you enter the field, you enter the ocean, and you can access it through your intuition, from the knowing without knowing, that doesn't involve calculation or reasoning. And
Yeah.
this form of knowledge was suppressed, right? And it happens that I just call it a feminine form of knowledge, but in a Jungian way, it is available for both women and men. This is what
Yeah.
I mean. And both, like I am also a very masculine person in the sense that I managed to function well in academia, working completely from my masculine side, because
Yeah.
this is how the system is. So, I function in it, and I have strong kind of activated this kind of active masculine part on myself as well. So it's not nothing against men. I mean, for humanity, both women and men have to explore and develop what I call goddess consciousness, with more of a uniting consciousness.
Yeah.
And because otherwise now we are in this what I consider like a dark, almost demonic corner of AI creators, because this is the masculine mind, which is very helpful. Technology is good. We wouldn't talk without technology, right? Right, even now, without being balanced by this other form of consciousness that I call goddess consciousness in Alien Goddess. This is where we are, and where it takes us, it's a complete technocratic nightmare, and we are almost there. So I just want to also clarify something else. I am not against men, not at all. I'm just saying we as human beings have to evolve this other form of consciousness,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
or we are, going in a very wrong direction. And all of this unidentified phenomena, anomalous phenomena, actually, that I describe in the book, not all of them, because there's a huge richness in this field, right? Both good and bad, negative and positive, and so on. So I was looking at these feminine apparitions who, in so many ways, try to get, because I believe they are interdimensional encounters, or
Yeah.
get the message through to us.
Yeah.
And I give examples of people, including myself, but also people from John Mack's book, famous book about abductions and so on. And I talk about myself, which is not abduction, but more like encounter, right? In a interdimensional encounter, and other people, when there is this strong desire to pass a message, but it's like at least when I had an encounter, didn't understand anything from the message on a conscious level. It was more like all I got, it is important. But then my life was completely transformed after that. So on some non-conscious level,
Yeah.
I understood it, right?
Right.
Because my
But
life changed. Yeah.
okay, so I want to respond to something there and then include something from the chat, which you just kind of spoke to, but maybe we
Mm.
can fill it out some more. And that is something that I took away from your book, and I think this is what you meant or one thread that you meant to speak to, is that it's like these female apparitions, alien encounters maybe, or
Yeah.
apparitions, are like whether or not they're okay, because they're transdimensional, they're like they could
Yeah.
be seen as a part of our own feminine psyche that's been suppressed, that are trying to speak to us, or the feminine consciousness that is not even just a part of us, but part of the collective that, that's been collectively suppressed, that's trying to speak to us. But it's the facet of the inner wisdom that some
That's
people call
right.
Sophia that has been suppressed for thousands of years. Thank you, patriarchy. That's now trying to come up
Mhm.
and speak to us. And like you keep saying, course correction,
Mhm.
so that we don't continue on a self-destructive path.
Yeah.
That's part of
Yeah.
it.
Yes.
And Megan, as she is, says, what if the focus of our work as women was just learning how to go inside of ourselves, connect with this ancient wisdom, it is there, and teaching other women how to get inside of it themselves. And so, with what I just said with that, and also this other thought I was having while reading your book in a very similar vein, like you look at someone like Sadhguru, like one of the most famous
Mm.
public gurus right now,
Mm.
like all of his work, he calls it inner engineering. Like you don't
Mm.
have to, like we are so obsessed with creating stuff outside of ourselves
Mm.
to become whole and perfect, but we don't have to do any of it. All of that technology is inside of us to
That's
reach
right.
this state of wholeness. And that's also what your book points to. So all of those threads, please respond to whatever you'd like to respond to.
So that's why in part 3 of the book, I talk about this esoteric traditions that basically describe the descent of the feminine consciousness, its suppression, and the way of ascending, right? So basically, you can look at it psychologically if you want, although I'm not a psychologist, integrating it. I'm saying, how can we actually embody this in a sense of a form of consciousness? And as I said, all of his works are describing exactly descent, then ascent. And in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, I believe she actually describes the tools of it. But it's quite interesting because we are so concerned with, the outside and creating externally that I say you just you have to take responsibility. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene gives you the tools. It depends what choices you make daily from which level of consciousness you make these choices. But people say, oh, but what do I really do? Like, do I light a candle? People want rituals.
Mhm.
And I say it is an inner ritual. You can have, candle is very nice because it puts you, like I see, and Dr. Andrea has it, it creates atmosphere. It is very good. But if you stop there, you're not going anywhere,
Yeah, right.
right? Like you actually have to do the inner work.
Yeah.
And because we are and we are conditioned to look at the external, all religions are all about rituals. The reason why I left Catholicism, not because I had bad experiences, but because all I got was external stuff, all the rituals and so on. And then I thought, okay, but I don't, it doesn't nurture me. I cannot find spiritual nourishment out of that. So, because it starts with working on ourselves. And this is what the Gospel of Mary Magdalene actually talks about. So, originally, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene talks about 4 levels of consciousness, right? 4 levels of consciousness. The first one is what is called in Neoplatonism soma, which is basically wrong identification. All esoteric traditions, Hinduism also talks about wrong identification. When we identify with the material world only, and we identify with external only. And in this first level, and this is what the most of humanity is on this level, I believe. And, I was there for a long time too. It is like you don't even know that there's something else. So it's not like you're stubborn. That's like, because we are presented with this reality as the only one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right? So, and then what very often happens, life brings awakening. Something happens because you identify with being a wife, being a husband, or being this particular professional. It's taken away from you. And people are really confused. Who am I without it? And some people never recover, but most people, this is the door of perception that open, I am still here, although I'm not this, and this, because it was taken away from me, right? And this is actually a huge opportunity to evolve. Not that evolution is easy, trust me. I've been kicking and screaming, for decades, right? So, so it's not like, oh yeah, the door open, I am walking through it. No, I fight it, because there is strong attachments, and ego attachments. Then the second level, I think it is the second level. Yes, the second level is that is called higher, lower desire, or wrong desire. And it's very deep, and we can go, in so many directions. But basically, from a practical point of view, when we talk about practice, spiritual practice, how can I move up on the levels of consciousness? It is from what level of your consciousness you're making this little decision.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be like, am I going to scream at my partner or, or not?
Yeah.
Or am I going to have a conversation with this? From which level? So in Alien Goddess, I give this example by actually Frank, I forgot his first name. He's a famous psychoanalyst. And he's
Viktor
dead now.
Frankl. Viktor
Yeah,
Frankl. Yeah.
that's right, Frankl. And when I was very young, I had the opportunity to go to his talk. And the only reason why I went because he was a famous psychoanalyst, and I wanted to be famous, right? Right? I was obsessed with this is the material level of things, first level of consciousness. And then he taught me a very important lesson because he said he also wanted to be famous like Sigmund Freud. And one day he decided, I wrote so many books. I try so hard and I'm still not famous. So I am going to write a book that actually helps people. And then he lowered his voice and he said, and this book made me famous.
Yeah.
So this is, you do the same thing, but from what level of consciousness you do it? Do you do it because I so desperately want to be famous? Like he wanted to be as famous as Sigmund Freud because he met Sigmund Freud when he was a young man, a teenager actually.
Yeah.
And so you can ask, okay, so is it a good Joanna or bad Joanna that's making this choice? Is it the evolved Joanna or the Joanna that is now that is making the choice? And from my very painful experiences, because I'm a very passionate and stubborn person in some ways, maybe not so stubborn, but passionate, and I have strong attachments because of that. If you don't know what choice to make, and you just from your solar plexus, you really want to make this choice that you have always made, just make another choice. The opposite of what you would normally do. And it is so difficult. It kills me because, I'm a fiery person, so it kills me. But this is you don't have to know what to do. Just do the opposite to what would you normally do. Because if you do what you normally do, you find yourself exactly in the same place. And there's zero evolution in it. And you can read lots of candles, do lots of rituals, and nothing will happen. I'm sorry.
I think most people get are stuck at that level. Like
This
they
is what
might
I
get
mean.
there.
Yeah, this is what I mean.
But to go beyond that, to master
You
that,
have to,
and then go on.
and it kills you. Like at least it's me. It's not like, oh, I'm had, now I'm involved. No, it is such a hard work, and if something really confronts you and you just want to go on automatic to your whatever, your normal responses, and you're too much in the emotion and passion and everything, you cannot think, then you just do the opposite what you would normally do.
This is why they're creating AI, right? Because
Yeah.
it actually bypasses all the difficulties and it makes you.
That's it, and you
don't have to
they
work at
say it.
all.
They
Yeah.
actually say it at Davos. They said, and you can ask your computer, what is the best thing for me to do today? They talk about it openly, like they're not hiding, They are so powerful, they don't care. And then there's the third level, which is, wisdom versus ignorance. And this is the most interesting level, and that's why I also include in Alien Goddess here, when I talk about the anomalous experiences, the apparitions, the UFOs, that, and I'm not talking about all UFOs, just one small, what I believe interdimensional encounters of the feminine wisdom, is that this is when we actually can open up a field of perception beyond the material. And in the Gospel of, I know there are many interpretations, I'm just giving my own, of nous, N-O-U-S, right? When in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, when she encounters Jesus or the teacher after, he's gone already, she asked him a question, where do I see you, teacher? And he says, you see me in the nous, right? So Jean-Yves Leloup explains that this is this imaginal space. And in the book, in Alien Goddess, I also make the definition, which I also learned from Professor Jeff Kripal, about liminal versus imaginal, which Leloup didn't really explain it. Because liminal, it is the space of consciousness open for you. So you start to have encounters you may not even understand. You have this intuitive knowing suddenly. Your intuition is telling you something, whether you follow or not, right? It's up to you. So now this field of perception is open to you. You see things or feel things that other people don't. That's liminal space. Imaginal is when you can communicate back and forth. You have a dialogue. So in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, she asks him and he answers. So it's not one way. It's not liminal, it is one way. You get, your top chakra open and now you get downloads. But you really have no tools yet to start, or you don't know. Maybe you have the tools, but you don't know that you can do this, right? So imaginal is when you actually open to a dialogue, right? To a dialogue. So this is the third level of consciousness, which I think is really important. The fourth level of consciousness is what in Neoplatonism and Leloup is talking about, is called pneuma or pneuma. in Greek, right? So we are talking about Neoplatonic terminology and esoteric terminology, not about classical Greek terminology, because people say, oh, nous means mind and pneuma. No, because this is what is in classical and this is what's in esoteric. So it means this is the where you are already open to eternity, to the divine space, and now it can fully descend upon you. So now you lift it up. So in theological terms, it is a like grace.
Yeah.
And you can be, if you truly open, you stay established in it. And this is what in Eastern terms it's enlightenment, right? Which is you establish in it. You don't have moments like we have moments, right? I have moments, but I go down. So you establish. But to do this, you have to go through these 7 things that everybody focuses when they discuss Gospel of Mary Magdalene, avoiding the 4 levels, which I sometimes think that it may be a later edition because it's the same, like 7, very similar to 7 deadly sins, right? So I don't know who got it from
Yeah.
what, but basically it is the voices of the ego.
Yeah.
And very often it means also that this is when in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene says, where are you going, vagabond? Who do you think you are, murderer? Why a murderer? Because you're murdering your ego. You let go of the lower tendencies and they grab you. It is like, you have a boyfriend that is not good for you and you moved on and then he calls you baby, I miss you. And you think, oh, maybe, it will be different this way, this time. So these are the tendencies. These are the tendencies,
Right.
that old tendencies, the lower energies that are dying, and they're not going to die.
Without a
Oh, I'm
fight.
glad Joanna evolved, Andrea evolved, Annalisa evolved. No, they need you because as we learn in Pistis Sophia, they feed on you. They have to, this, all the demonic powers are feeding on our lower energies. They need us to stay there.
And this, I just want to interject that the story of the Buddha right before enlightenment too, it's a very similar
Yeah, the same.
thing,
Yeah,
you
exactly. It's
know,
the same stories.
or like
All
Jesus
the
in the desert. I mean, there's a
Yeah,
lot
and
of,
all the
yeah.
temptings of the devil. Exactly. So this is what it is. And the babes in Buddha, the sisters start to dance, and tempt him and so on. So this is the story. And it's, I think, interesting that some of this, it is like, who do you think you are? And I think this is
Mm.
when we move up on the ladder of consciousness, we think, well, I must be wrong because everybody else thinks the opposite, right? And
Right.
it's quite interesting because in all of these ancient goddess mythologies, especially, for example, in Eleusinian Mysteries, it's Demeter, the way I interpret that, and it's not the only interpretation, it is interpretation in the context of what I am researching. Demeter basically is walking around and she knows that something is wrong. And I think this is where we are now in humanity. And she just doesn't know what's wrong. And then, everybody, all other gods are telling her, but everything is okay. Your daughter married well. What's your problem? It's a good match. She married the god of the underworld. It's a good match. And she says, something is wrong. Something is wrong. And I think this is where we are now, that we start to see that something is wrong. This is the times of revelation, right? Apocalypse means unveiling, revelation. And so we see that something is wrong. And until she meets Hecate, right, or Hecate, and who goddess of magic, who tells her, you are not crazy, because Demeter starts to think she's crazy. You're not crazy. Something is wrong. And in fact, I saw that your daughter was abducted. And then they go level higher to Helios, which is interestingly above the Greek gods, because he's a
Mm.
titan, he's much more ancient.
Yeah.
And he says, okay, he's like the higher wisdom. Since you really have to know and you cannot have, be happy with with what you've got, like you have a job, okay, you hate it, but you have a salary and so on. You got married well, but you complain because she's in underworld. This is what happened. Okay. So it's basically a story of going again into a higher level of consciousness.
Are we
And
there
this
yet, though? That's the question. Are we going to get
higher
there?
level, it is available for us. But I think what's happening, like talking geopolitically, and I'm not going into anything, specific, is that we are so debilitated by what's going on and being angry at this leader or that leader or this war at that war. It is a distraction.
Yeah. I so completely agree, but I'm so grateful for the roiling undercurrent of female energy, female anger, female the rising of the female wanting to take back sovereignty and autonomy, right? So,
That's
like with what Annalisa is saying, it's like we're saying to the goddess, we're going on a really long car trip, but are we there yet? Yeah.
that's right. Are we there yet?
Yeah.
So we are and we are not, right? So it
Right.
depends
Right.
on our individual choices and our collective choices. So that's why I think if you just, I don't know how much time we have, I just very briefly about Pistis Sophia, because it is a really important work. Because very often the feminine now, rightly, but it's not productive, goes to just rage. Rage should be a stage.
Yeah.
Even
Mhm.
Kali is in rage only for a while, right?
Yeah.
And then she
Right.
moves
But it's
on.
important. It shouldn't
It
be
is very
spiritually,
important. I don't want to
not
deny it.
spiritually bypass it. Yeah, it's
But
holy.
it's, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, it's important. You cannot suppress it. But it has to eventually, you have to deal with it. How do
It
you
has to
deal with it?
transform. Yeah, it has to
Yeah,
transform into
she's
action. Yeah.
transformed.
Yeah.
That's right. And people often forget it. They just go into this particular stage. So in Pistis Sophia, how does she get over is because she is in rage and she's whinging all the way through Pistis Sophia too, and then when things turn around for her, when she takes responsibility, and I don't want to be misunderstood, even if something horrible happened to us, taking responsibility is not taking the blame. It is taking responsibility for how we process it,
Yep.
right? Because we can stay in victimhood forever and it doesn't go anywhere. You're still in the lower energies, right? You have to acknowledge it and then you have to take charge of it. And now what I'm going to do with this, right? And when she acknowledges it, this is when what I discuss in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene as well, help from above arrives,
Yeah.
grace arrives. But this is when you actually say, okay. And then she actually says, well, actually, I made the wrong choices. Yeah, I thought, but it's not my fault. In a way, it is and it isn't. I just wanted to ascend, and I was fooled by the demons that they told me that I'm ascending when I was actually descending. And I think this is really the message, my message about AI. The demons beyond creation of AI that are using these men who are doing, actually all the designs, women and men, to be fair, promise us that it's ascension. You live forever. You have anybody you want. We just transfer consciousness when in fact it is a descent to darkness from which humanity may never recover.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, so that's why Pistis is not Pistis Sophia because it's interesting, which it is. It is that it describes what I believe humanity is facing now. And people are madly, you have no idea how much abuse I got, for especially actually from New Age community, about that. But you have it, you have free will, you can choose it. But you think you're ascending, but you're descending. You ask AI for spiritual advice. You think you're ascending, but you're descending. You're giving up your own inner work. You're giving up your own intuition instead of going within. And yes, it is difficult. And yes, it's difficult to discern which voice is actually intuition, which one is desire, which one is whatever. That's inner work. This is how we spiritually evolve. Ask AI. It's so much easier. You think you're ascending, you're descending. And this
So
descent eventually, may end us.
Oh, I can ascend with my credit card. That makes it so much easier.
I
I can just
I
pay for this thing. This is great. I'm done.
we are kind of close to the end, but we didn't talk
Yes.
about UFOs so much, and but so I just want to say, and Andrea, add anything if you want to add. Um, as you were speaking, Joanna, I was thinking about like the AI is the demiurge, and
Yes.
the
No, actually,
UFOs. Okay,
just
well,
a
hold on.
moment.
Let me just finish this. Oh,
Okay.
and then you
Okay, I
can
just
correct
want to
me all you
say
want.
AI is not a demiurge. People who create AI are demiurges,
Okay, there you go. They're
right?
the
Yeah,
forces
it's just a
behind. Yeah, that's just the
correction. Yeah,
tool. Yes,
yeah.
right. But these UFOs and these apparitions, they're I don't are they like Sophia trying to help us along? Like how would you how is are the UFOs here to help us Are they here to help
I
us?
would say some are, some aren't. There's discernment involved in this, right?
Yes, I
I think,
agree.
yeah,
Great questions, Annalisa, and great answer, Andrea. Some are, and some not, because like of course people had horrible experiences, and and I think UFOs, if we just call them this way, they're good and bad guys. They're like, and whereas these energies were actually personifications of energies in the universe, so they are demonic energies, they are the bad UFOs, and they are the, more what we call theologically angelic messengers,
yeah,
when they're like, you are on the wrong path. You have such a potential, many of them say, even John Mack described, one of his people, you have so much potential, you're supposed to be an innocent child of nature with great spiritual potential, and what are you doing?
yeah,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? So they're obviously good and bad. I focus on the ones that are like messengers of you have to change your ways. I don't talk about anti-gravity. It's this kind of guy thing. And and I really don't care about anti-gravity, because I think that if aliens are really the truly advanced aliens, the truly advanced AI, they contact us through consciousness,
yeah,
Yeah,
because that's
right.
the real technology.
yeah.
And the like more demented ones have to build a ship, which is
I know.
slightly bigger and better than I own. And in one podcast, and it was two really good guys, we were laughing together. It is like, my spaceship is bigger than your spaceship, right? This is this kind of level of thinking, which is totally level one of consciousness in the Gospel of Mary
Yeah.
Magdalene. We just have a bigger spaceship and we want it. We want as big as they have it.
I mean, thinking about what you're saying, if we can't find a way to live as a species in some sort of sustainable, balanced way, and if we can't keep the planet healthy, and if we can't be related to our own cycles and the cycles of nature, and we can't figure this out, then we have no business traveling anywhere else in the universe.
Absolutely. And this is my question to Elon Musk, which is actually, I think, is slightly more sane than definitely than Peter Thiel, or Sam Altman, which I think is just an irresponsible child, greedy child that needs a, I won't say what. And I want to tell Elon Musk, because I think he's the only one who has at least very strong reasonings. He has a strong discernment. I give it to him that so you plant the earth and then you take the same species to another planet so they can destroy it as well, right? That's the plan. It's just to make it clear, that's your plan, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's why I say
Totally.
we have to evolve, and evolving is about take responsibility. Let's work on ourselves. I certainly know that I really really have to work hard on myself, and otherwise, we have no business to go anywhere, and we have certainly no business to create new mechanical species.
Yeah.
Right. So I know we've kind of been talking about this the whole time, but I really felt when I was reading your book, like what's at stake if we don't start to value the feminine qualities of what it is to be human?
Well, at stake it is that we're completely losing our humanity, that we give up our souls for, mechanical bodies, and then we destroy this planet and probably all other planets around us because, like, why not? Right? We completely go in a completely wrong direction. And what we need, the reason why we need feminine consciousness, which is available for both women and men, it is that we need to balance this form of energy, which is a masculine energy that creates that, and many good things that make our lives easier, with this other, more intuitive, more holistic form of consciousness, and then we can reach some balance, we can reach some understanding. We cannot work with one part of our brain only, right? And that's it. And it's, in fact, it's a lower form of consciousness. All they are working with is level one of consciousness from the Gospel of Mary Magdalene.
Yeah.
And that's
Right.
not good enough. So this is what's at stake. Our survival is at stake, but for me, even importantly now, I think survival of a spirit in our bodies and the survival of all the beautiful beings. I love the natural world. This is what happened to me when I became, actually started to be spiritual. Seeing the intelligence of nature.
Yeah. The crazier life gets in the zeitgeist right now, the more I'm pushed to spend more and more time in nature.
That's very good, and it's a very intuitive human response, and that's why at the end of the book we are not going to discuss now. I talk about the shamanic entity Baba Yaga, who is actually the guardian of nature, and she is fed up with us.
Yeah,
she is fed, she had enough, right?
Mhm.
Because, and I can totally see it. So this is what at stake, you know. So it's even if you don't want to think about it from like a higher point of view, you know, your own survival, your children's survival is at stake. You know, even now there are studies done, I don't want to go to this, but children are completely addicted to mobiles, you know, where actually physiology is changing.
yeah.
So
Yeah, it's reprogramming the brain. All kinds of things are
it's
happening.
and I do not, and just to say in a final note, in a kind of conspiratorial tone, I do not believe it's innocent, and I believe that people who work on it are actually in communication with this other form of consciousness, which is very dark.
Okay, so that's part 2 that you have to come back for.
Yeah. I know.
Thank you so much.
I
It
know.
was a
Thank you.
great
Thank you,
pleasure.
Andrea. Yeah, this was really great, Joanna. And I think we'd love to keep talking to you for another
Thank
hour,
you.
2, 3. But to honor the container here, we should probably wrap up. Andrea, do you have any other last thoughts that you wanted to ask or share?
No, I just want to thank you so much, Dr. Joanna, for coming and bringing sort of this whole zeitgeist AI thing to the fore to talk about it, what it means, potentially for humanity, where it could be positive and where it's headed, not looking good for the archetypal or spiritual or goddess feminine. And I think it's one of the most important topics that
I agree.
very few people are talking about. And I think women, we need to wake up to it. We need to look at continuing the rise of the archetypal feminine and continue in the community. And I would love to have you back to talk about the reprogramming of the brain through the digital, the handheld digital world. I mean, it's a great conversation. Thank you so much. That's all I have to say. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so
Yeah,
much. My pleasure.
likewise. Yeah, thank you, Joanna. Always a pleasure to be in conversation with you and everybody at home. Thank you for being here. Sorry we didn't get to so much of the chat, but Zeph, you are a warrior for the feminine. Thank you. I just want to say he always is just so complimentary. I just want to say he says something here about the goddess symbolism enables meaningful dreaming experiences for him. And let's see, we can show others how to find the goddess within others. That's otherwise you can't find her without being guided, or maybe, even guided by non-embodied entities. Who knows? So
Thank you. Can I just say something to that?
Yeah.
Because actually, I really appreciate when, men participate in this kind of conversations. That's why I always say it's both for women and men. And in fact, I will be giving presentation, but it's like for somebody's patron, so it's not will not be available. But but I want him to know that I discuss, when I talk about archetypes of goddesses, and then I said an archetype of the masculine that supports the goddesses of ascension, because it is also very important. So I'm not leaving out men out of that. Yes.
That's great. That's actually a talk for another time too. So thank you both. Thank you to everybody at home. Buy Joanna's book. It's on Dr. Joanna, sorry. Dr. Goddess Joanna. Oh, there you go. It's upside down, Dr. A. There you go.
Because the feminine is upside down.
That's right. She's being suppressed.
That's it.
There you go. Buy it on Amazon. The link's in the YouTube text box. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and we will see you next time. Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, ladies. It was a great conversation. Nice to meet you, Dr. Joanna.